We'd been planning this hunting trip to Pine Ridge Forest for months. My friend Dave and I had been hunting buddies for years, and we were excited about the adventure. The forest was vast and dense, with tales of game and of course the legend of the Silent Stalker, a story locals told to keep strangers away. But Dave and I? We loved the thrill of the unknown. We arrived at the forest at dawn. The towering pine trees greeted us with their shadows, and the cool, misty air was filled with the sounds of nature. As we set up camp, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Dave, on the other hand, was pumped and already talking about bagging a deer before sundown. After a day of exploring, we settled by the campfire, sharing stories and enjoying the quiet of the wilderness. Suddenly we heard a branch snap deep within the trees. We both froze, our flashlights piercing the darkness. I shrugged it off as a deer, but Dave wasn't convinced. The forest seemed too quiet, almost tense. The next morning we found strange tracks around our camp. They were too large to be a deer, yet too indistinct to identify. Maybe a bear, Dave suggested, but I wasn't sure. The shape was odd, almost human but not quite. We decided to track them, hoping for a big catch. As we followed the tracks deeper into the forest, an overwhelming stench filled the air. It was a smell of rot and decay, something that made my stomach churn. We pushed forward, curiosity overpowering our sense of caution. That's when we stumbled upon the first carcass. It was a deer, its body torn apart savagely. There was no way a normal predator could have done this. The flesh looked shredded, as if something had ripped it apart for pleasure, not food. Dave's face turned pale. Maybe we should head back, he muttered. But we didn't. We pressed on. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing things, low whispers rustling in the leaves, branches breaking in the distance. Dave was restless too, and at one point, I saw him staring out into the darkness, his eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded. The following day we felt it, a presence. It was as if someone or something was watching us. I caught glimpses of a shadow moving between the trees, too large to be a human. Dave saw it too. "Let's get out of here," he insisted, but it was too late. We were already deep in Pine Ridge and the sun was setting. We decided to make a run for it. As we packed up our gear hastily, I saw it, just for a second, a tall figure standing at the edge of the clearing watching us. Its eyes reflected the light and they were glowing. I pulled out my rifle, but by the time I aimed, it had vanished. Panic set in. We grabbed what we could and ran. The forest was a maze in the dark, and every step seemed to lead us deeper. Behind us, the crunch of leaves and breaking branches indicated we were not alone. It was following us. We decided to set traps. Dave and I quickly rigged a few using our supplies, hoping to slow down whatever was stalking us. We waited, our hearts pounding. Minutes felt like hours, and then we heard it, a loud snap followed by a terrifying growl. The growl was deep and resonant, like no animal I'd ever heard. It was close, too close. I raised my rifle, my hands trembling. Dave stood beside me, his face ashen. "We shouldn't have come here," he whispered. I nodded. We shouldn't have. Suddenly the creature charged. I fired a shot into the darkness, hearing a loud roar and the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. For a moment there was silence. Then a shriek that chilled my bones. Whatever it was, I had only angered it. In our panic, Dave and I got separated. I could hear him shouting my name, but his voice seemed to get further away. I tried to call back, but the sound of my own voice was swallowed by the forest. I was alone. Alone with it. I stumbled upon a cave and took refuge inside, hoping it would lose my scent. The cave was dark, damp, and cold. As I moved deeper, my flashlight flickered and I heard it, the soft padding of something large entering the cave. I hid behind a rock, trying to control my breathing. The creature moved slowly, deliberately, as if it knew I was there but was toying with me. My heart was racing and sweat dripped down my face. I needed to get out, but how? Suddenly, I heard Dave's voice echoing through the cave, weak and filled with pain. "Help me," he groaned. I had no choice. I had to find him. As I moved deeper, I saw a horrifying sight. Dave, barely alive, hanging from the cave wall, his eyes wide with terror. Before I could reach him, the creature appeared. It was tall, with matted fur and a twisted face that was part human, part beast. Its eyes gleamed with hunger. I froze, feeling every ounce of courage drain from my body. This was the silent stalker, and it wasn't a legend. With a burst of adrenaline, I fired at the creature, but it moved with unnatural speed, dodging my shots. It charged at me, and I felt its claws rip through my jacket. I swung my rifle like a club, connecting with its head. It staggered, giving me just enough time to pull Dave down and run. We ran, stumbling out of the cave and into the forest. I could hear the creature behind us getting closer. My legs were burning, and Dave was barely conscious. As we reached the edge of the forest, I could see our truck. We made it. But just as we thought we were safe, a cold, deep growl echoed through the night, reminding us that the hunt was far from over.